Okay, hands up if you're a self-taught Photoshop user that learned through trial and error by clicking around nearly at random when you first started getting into the software. Here's 7 tips that will quickly elevate your DIY Photoshop powers BYOL style. Hi, my name is Bret Malley. I'm a digital artist, I'm Adobe Press author, and of course a bring your own laptop instructor. And I promise by the end of this video, you'll be shouting, why didn't someone show me this sooner? So without further ado, let's just jump straight in. Tip number 1, healing tools and generative AI. When we say, hey, that's been photoshopped, we're usually referring to a digital sleight of hand operation that includes warping, healing tools, and now of course, generative AI. Here's just a few healing operations that are my go-tos, starting with the spot healing brush. This is great. Let's say we want to clean up this image and remove some of these rocks. Maybe we're going to put a subject in here or text or something. Take a look at this. I can just select and move this. However, you'll notice it's not quite doing it perfectly, and it's a destructive edit. So this is why whenever you're doing healing, there's usually an option that you can do it in a non-destructive way. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I want to make sure up in the options bar that sample all layers is selected. So now when I do that same thing, right, it's going to put it on a blank brand new layer, and that makes it this is a little bit of a cloak, some camouflage right there. And so I can do that for the rest of these. But this tool in a pinch is wonderful for removing those things that you don't need a whole lot of AI to lift with it. With the latest versions of Photoshop, we have a lot more AI features. One of those includes the remove tool. So this is neat. With this tool, all I need to do is make sure I'm sampling all layers just like before, working on a new layer. I can select around and it's going to do its own, look at that, AI magic and just make that vanish. The Photoshop is his own magic. It's pretty neat. And with just a click and a draw, I'm not giving it a source target. I'm not doing anything. So this is kind of like all the other features, but it's using a bit more artificial intelligence and looking at what this is, the ripples of the lake. Let's see if I paint this whole area, what this does over on this side. Okay, make sure that's all selected. And look at that. Made it a little bit smooth. I might go in there and, fix it up with some of the other ones. But when we compare the two, I'd say it's probably doing a much better job. Okay, so it did okay on some rocks and a lake, but what if we wanted something more drastic and has perspective? Let's try taking out this entire door. I'm going to drag and move all around here, and let's just see what that does. Boom. Look at that. That is just so cool. It is so cool. Let's say we want to take out this person. That defeats the person since he seems like this little kind of ghosty guy. But let's try taking out all of this and see what it does. Holy moly. Okay. This is so cool. And this is, again, part of the power of Photoshop, and we're working non-destructively because of the layers. So you can remove any little thing, especially with that AI feature, which is just so neat. All right, next tip. Tip number 2, fast and awesome selections and masks made easy. Let's do it. All too often, we do things the long and hard way because, well, that's how we've always done it. Until we see there's a better way. Some basic selections are perfect for little tasks that we have within Photoshop, and sometimes they're just not enough. So let's take a look at some of the basic ones. So over on the left-hand side with our tools, we have our rectangular marquee tool. This, as its name implies, is so great for those rectangular selections, but we're very much used to this. So we also have the quick selection tool. The quick selection tool is really great for, as its name implies, a quick selection. If I hold down Shift, I can select multiple of these little flying stuffed animals, and that's really fun. And if I go too far, we can use that trick of holding down Alt or Option to subtract from this selection if I don't want this. And then if we have something like a quick selection for hair, well, it may not, if we're about to mask this, it may not get all those parts. If I were to create a mask, right, that's a pretty bad haircut. We don't want to do that. But we do have this feature called Select and Mask. Right off the bat, we have this Refine Edge Brush tool. This tool is amazing. We can literally say, hey, there's hair up here, and it just knows what the background is. It knows what all those other pieces are. I don't want to erase her face. And look at that. And it's able to subtract. If I draw right in here, it knows that's background and knows where the hair is. And if I want, over on the right, I can see, okay, where else am I missing hair? And change that transparency temporarily to see where else I still need to go. So there's lots of wonderful features within Photoshop to help us refine whatever our selection is before we get to a mask. I can say, okay, there we go. So now we have a fancier selection that didn't take too long at all, but there's an even faster way. Take a look at this. This is so neat. So I'm going to do Command D to deselect, and now I'm just going to hit Select Subject. It's going to think about it, and there we go. If I were to mask this, look at that. It did such a good job just by the default. All those things that I was painting, not that it took me a whole lot of time, but imagine if you're doing a whole lot of this, a lot of repetition, and you just need to select people, then this is immensely helpful. So we also have the object selection tool. Now this feature has some really cool parts about it. One, it's going to do a quick little analysis and figure out all those little lines of contrast and all the things it can figure out that are objects. And these are all selectable. I can select multiple by holding down Shift. That is so neat, but there's more. I just nerd out on this so hard. There's a select people button. I'm going to click select people. Take a look at this. It was able to analyze the people here, and there's a little person right there, a little floating one in there. Mermaids are real, apparently. Okay, so we can select. It found the faces, it found the other people that are in there, and not only, let's say we're selecting her, it has the properties. So if you want to select just the hair, or just the eyebrows, or the eyes, or iris, right? All these different features have been identified and tagged and are now selectable. It is so awesome. And that is under the Select Object tool. All right, let's keep going. Tip number 3, superpowers of layers, masks, group folders, and clipping. Whether you're staying organized with your workflow or you just need to edit one certain part of your image, layers is what it's all about. So we just talked about selections, but what if we want to now cut out that subject? That's where masking comes in. So for those that aren't familiar with masking, it's the non-destructive erasing of certain parts of your image, where you can use white to reveal and black to conceal. Or if we use a selection, we can make it hide everything else that's outside of that selection, or hide everything else that's inside of that selection. So down here at the bottom, I have this elephant layer selected. I'm about to make a cutout, right? We can see that selected. So if I just click this little icon down here, that is the mask icon, and we can see it cut out that background. Cool. So this is cut out, but what else is going on here? What are all these colors? So staying organized, especially if you're working with many layers, the more you start getting, it starts getting super overwhelming or hard to find all the things that you need to edit. So keeping a very clean folder structure, such as using group folders, such as using colors and labeling, is huge, right? Again, you want to be able to find your superpowers wherever they might be. So we have some capabilities at our fingertips that make it so helpful. First of all, let's take a look at creating new group folders. So down at the bottom of the layers panel, we have this create new group icon. And right off the bat, it just creates a new group folder directly above whatever layer or folder was already highlighted. And if I double click the letters themselves, we can rename this group folder to whatever it is that we want. And by default, it's this sort of gray color. If we want to make it a little easier to find, a little color goes a long way. So I'm going to right click. Let's choose something I don't have yet. Let's try this magenta. Sweet. All right, there we go. So staying organized, I can find that. If it's a whole list of various layers and folders that are in there, that's going to be very easy to find. But what do they do? Why group them? Well, take a look at this. Whether you're doing a effects bank that's going to affect a whole bunch of layers all at once in the visual look and feel, or if you're doing all these layers that combine to sink in an elephant with its shadow in the middle of a European street, then group folders are immensely helpful for that. So let's take a look at some of these features that I've done here. Let's say when I just brought this in, it wasn't the right color or didn't have the right shading or any number of things. You'll see these little tiny icons here, and that is for clipping a various layer or adjustment layer to that layer where it's only affecting the thing directly beneath it and nothing else, which is so helpful. Let's say we want to make this a pink elephant, because why not? So rather than all these things that are trying to make it seamless, let's go a different direction. I'm going to create a new elephant here by holding down Alt or Option and dragging up a bit, just so I have one that I'm not mixing up with all those other pieces there. So I'm going to come over to the hue and saturation adjustment, and if I just shift everything to the pink, not necessarily helpful. If I just want a pink elephant and a normal, it still looks kind of cool, but not the more judicious application of pink that I'm looking for. If I want to affect just the layer directly beneath this, we have a couple options. One, our properties panel of that adjustment layer gives us this little tiny clip to the layer beneath it icon right there. And we can see this went from affecting globally everything beneath that layer to just the one it's pointing to, the one directly beneath that layer. So any adjustments that we do, let's say in saturation or any of that, it's only going to affect that elephant layer, right? Let's say we wanted to paint something in, paint in some shadows or highlights or do something different with it, and I just create a new layer. let's say I want to make this just a little bit darker on the bottom here. I'm going to switch to my brush tool. So if I want to add more shadows just down here, see how it's making like a black hole, right? And it's affecting all the way around this. Now it's a really big shadow for this elephant. It doesn't look right at all. So if I just wanted this painting of that layer to apply to the elephant only, notice at the bottom of the properties panel, there isn't a little clip icon. But that's where shortcuts come in and other features. If I hold down Option or Alt on the keyboard, I can hover directly between these layers and it turns into that same little clip icon, right? So there's the elephant, there's that previous clipped icon. If I click right beneath that, aha! Now whatever I paint, whatever sort of shadows I paint, oh no, we lost the pink elephant. It's in witness protection. Whatever happened to this is only going to apply to the layer it's pointing to. You can also do the shortcut, which on the Mac is Command Option G, and that will change it from either being clipped or not clipped. Or on the PC, anytime I say Command, just say Control. Anytime I say Option, just do Alt. The possibilities are endless. Now, these are just a few tips with some spiffy editing for YouTube, so let us know in the comments if you're finding them useful. And if you are enjoying these tips, I have a full Photoshop Essentials course that will go much deeper and slower. So take a look at the link below, and let's get to number 4. Tip number 4, blending modes. Now, normal is so boring, and that's where blending modes really shine. Take a look at this. When I mean normal, that is the normal blending mode that we start off with. Let's say we're looking at this fire image here, right? On the side, well, there's a lot of things that are all sorts of and not normal with this, but if I look at this layer, and we look at its blending mode, by default, it's set to normal. If we change that, we can have all these really cool effects that come into play. So when you are playing with layers, play with blending modes. Sometimes it will make all the difference, especially if you're trying to make things look more seamless, or if you're trying to have a logo, have a certain look, or change the color. Blending modes are a fantastic way to interplay between your various layers in the graphics and how they're being interpreted. It's neat. So let's take a look at what I might do for this. For this one, if I want the darks to kind of disappear and roll off without masking it, I can just go to Screen. Take a look at that. And it's almost gone there, but we just went over how to do clipping masks. So I'm going to create a new curves adjustment. I'm going to clip this, and I can just get those darks crushed all the way until that background disappears. There we go. Cool. All right, so I'm left with nothing but flame. I can finish up with some masking, but it's also the wrong color. But let me quickly mask this here. Brush. All right, I'm going to paint with black, X on the keyboard. A good sort of, what did we just do? So let's make sure that's all sort of gone. We don't see any of that there. All right, we just want some of this kind of flying off her shoulder there. But it's the wrong color. So with these, if I want to change this color to something else, let's say a color I eyedrop. So if I hold down Alt or Option and I eyedrop some sort of bluish color, something in there, let's create another layer directly above this. And if I just paint on this, right, it's just going to obliterate whatever that is. And if I clip it, it's just going to obliterate whatever is on that layer. But if I change this blending mode to something like color, right, take a look at how it is now using that color to apply to that fire layer. So I have a curves adjustment that's getting rid of those darks, and this color blending mode. So definitely don't forget to use your blending modes and experiment. Tip number 5, new AI features such as Gen Fill and Harmonize, which at the time of recording, it's in beta, but let's use it. Things are moving fast with AI, and Adobe is integrating more and more AI into their features, their tools, the workflow, and it is a game changer. No questions asked. With that said, I'm interested to know more about your experience with AI, and if you had any funny Photoshop AI hallucinations that have come into your images and what that looks like. So yeah, are they coming for our jobs yet or not? We'll find out, but let's jump into this. Okay, we're gonna start with this image of a sunset that my son and I took while camping a few years ago. And let's start by using the AI that we already went over just a little bit, just to clean up some of this. So I'm gonna use the lasso tool, and I'm just gonna make a nice sort of organic, give it plenty of water to work with, just sort of going around. Let's remove all the stems. Let's just do it. Okay, I'm gonna go all the way down, and there we go. Make sure we all got it. Cool. All right, so I'm just gonna hit this remove button with this selected here. Let's do remove, and let's see what it does. So yep, look at that. It it removed it. It removed it all. And now we're like right up against the water. So I still want a little bit of a shore. Once I subtract just a little bit more from that selection, let's try the remove feature one more time. And hey, there we go. So now we have a little bit of that. Oh, I like these kind of waves that are coming in here, just slight ones. That's kind of nice. And now we're ready to start adding some things. It really depends on the selection tools that you have, what area you have selected, and what you're gonna do with it, and that will change how AI generates within that area that you have selected. So the first trick is to get a good selection and to use one of the selection tools that's helpful. So if I'm going to do something that has lines, such as a dock that goes out into the water a little bit, I'm going to choose this polygonal lasso tool, and that's going to allow me to really select where I put in this dock. And so let's have it start kind of off here. We'll have it go this way towards kind of that rule of thirds. And we'll just kind of have it go out a little bit. Let's see, something about in there. And then I'll just close it off at the very end there. Okay, knows what I want. Cool. So I'm going to do generative fill. And this in the contextual taskbar is going to give us some really cool options here. And let's bring this up just so I can see it. Let's make it a wood dock at sunset on a lake. There we go. Wood dock at sunset on a lake. That should be enough. So here's a really neat feature that is just coming out where you can choose what kind of AI model it is using to generate this. So start with the default Firefly, and all of these will have a different system of how many credits it uses to make something like this. But take a look at their partners. There's now partner models where you have Nano Banana that's actually part of Photoshop now, which is really neat. Firefly Image 3, that's their latest one, but their Image 1 actually did some really neat things and some things better in some cases. So experiment with which AI model you're actually using. Okay, I'm gonna hit generate and let's see what it does for this. Ooh, nice. Okay, so we have a few different options. So let's go with option number 3. And now if we want to bring in this boat, perfect, nailed it. You may notice that the color is like super off. It doesn't look right at all. So we have a feature inside Photoshop that's called Harmonize. Right in that contextual taskbar there is a button, and I'm gonna click it and we're gonna see what it's gonna do with this boat here. Okay, we have a few different options. But look what it was before, right? Before and after, and how much more that sinks in. And while it may not be perfect, it's all getting me so much closer. And then I can use all the other tools and features that we've already talked about in this, the tips that we have so far to make it as seamless as possible. Tip number 6, ways to warp, puppet warp, and so much more. All right, let's talk about warping and why it matters. We often find the need to do more than just move an image around with the move tool, or rotate it, or scale it. Those are all super helpful things. But what if we want to do more, such as warping or bend it or straighten a thumb out or any number of things? We can do all of that in Photoshop. Specifically for this, if I want to change the perspective of this is the easiest one right here. We get the move tool, and with the move tool, you want to make sure that you have show transform controls toggled on up in the options bar, and that will allow us more of those parameters that without it, it's just a little bit trickier and we have to do a shortcut Command T every time we want to do that. But right off the bat, this is a really cool move. If I hold down Command or Control, I can change the perspective of this. I can just select one of these anchor points depending on what we're doing. Now this might be helpful if it's a sign or something else, not so much helpful on a cup, but we get the idea of how this works. There's more options down here in the contextual taskbar where we can flip horizontal, we can flip vertical, we can rotate, but there's more. If I click on this, we get some other options here, such as warping. Now we can also change the perspective, we can distort. These are all wonderful things, but I want to focus on warping specifically. And right off the bat, we get a few different warping options. We can see that I can literally warp this around in this way, and that can be very helpful, but we also have some defaults, such as arc or arch. That could be very helpful, where if we want something to be on a rounded material of some kind, you can match that roundness. This custom is where we get these Bezier curve handles that really help us tweak it. Just know that less is more. If we want something to have kind of a perspective or bulge more out in the middle, then you're going to have to move this around a little bit to get that idea. There's also a really fun feature that I am obsessed with, and that's called puppet warping. So with the same layer that's selected there, I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Puppet Warp. And you want to make sure that we have the show mesh toggled on. And then you can see, we see this mesh. Like, what is this? Think of this as like a big trampoline of spandex here, where it's stretched across this whole image. And everywhere that I click, it's going to create a new point. all of these points are things that we can move around. There's not just moving, but if I hold down Option, again, those modifiers, I can rotate this. So if I want to straighten that thumb out just a little bit, I can do that. If I want this knuckle pushed out a little bit more, right, we can add more pins. Again, it turns into play. And just because you can play, be careful because all these features and tools can be way overused. So less is more for them. Tip number 7, the magic of new and quick color adjustments. This is awesome. Color is powerful, and color control is ultimate power. Okay, that sounds a bit maniacal, but in all seriousness, being able to control color with just a few clicks is amazing, and it's a huge game changer in the latest features. Down at the bottom, we have this button in the contextual taskbar called Adjust Colors, and if I click on that, it's going to create one of those hue and saturation adjustment layers automatically, and it will give us a color palette where we can change the colors right here to anything we want, and it's built in. If we want to change what these colors are doing, we can do more in the properties panel itself, such as if we want to make that selection a little more narrow with what it is, or shift where that's going to be selected, right? But it all comes from these little samplers that we now have. So if I click color, I can shift it, but if I double click on that color, it pulls up the color picker where I can literally select exactly which color I want to start changing. But what's more, sometimes it's really helpful to have like a tactile version of editing the file. We have a button for that. To the right of this preset custom drop-down menu, we have this little toggle button that allows us to color. We can literally adjust right on this image. If I say, hey, let's make this fire more saturated, I'm just clicking and dragging to the right, and it knows exactly what the range is because it turns into a little eyedropper. And what's more, if I hold down Command, it's going to change the hue of whatever has that similar color, which is really neat. Okie dokie, well, that's the 7 tips for you. However, if you want more Photoshop craziness, in addition to the essentials at a pace you can actually follow along for, since there was a lot packed in there, link in the description below for my course on Photoshop Essentials, where you'll have everything you need to know as a professional designer and Photoshop user, and at a depth that is just going to be a whole lot of fun to actually unpack this amazing software. I'll see you there. Yes. Goodbye. For now. These are so awkward. I never know how to end these. See you later, all.